G'day everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Melbourne Pro Punters panel. A man who's still in the country due to his 457 visa, Darren Potter. Hello mate.
How are you, mate?
Good, we're back here in the police interview room.
Are you good cop or bad cop? Which one?
Oh, there's no chance of winning. As mentioned by, we better get him out of the way early, Nathan Snow. He said, what were you doing in the police interview room last week when you did the show? So we're back here. It's a nice spot here, Potts. It's nice and quiet, helps the audio.
We wanted to feel at home, Snow.
Well, whenever you have a bet, you get treated like a criminal. So, as usual, we're brought to Wonder Fly. A little bit of an announcement this week, wasn't there? Rat's on board now. Mark Roden, he's sent out a free set today for Wyong. So, if you haven't grabbed that, the show will be up after the races are finished. But have a look. He'll be a great addition going forward. He's a good analyst. So,
yeah. Look, I don't know any of the background jump in terms of what's happening with Johnny Walter, but Johnny's a great guy. I've enjoyed working with him over the last few years. I know he's got a lot on his plate, but sad to say that John's not still doing the full sets is my understanding of it, but Mark will be fantastic at it. I've got full confidence in the work Mark will do. He's the conversations him and I have had, he approaches things a lot along the same lines as I do, and while we've had our ups and downs, Juppy, I've been, putting out a set for quite a few years now that the punters seem to get something out of. And it's been particularly good in the last week, Juppy. Last week was a good week. So
it was a good week all round. The AFL tips, they went 3 from 3.
Excellent.
Brendy Richards went 3 from 3 on the NRL.
So who'd you tip in the AFL, Juppy? Who were they?
We tipped North Melbourne with the plus, West Coast and GWS. And there was a couple of others that I sort of didn't want to overwhelm everyone with, but they both would have won as well. But I think we're starting to get a bit of a handle on where things are at, and there might be a little bit of variance out of the way in your pot, so hopefully we can continue going upward.
Bouncing back. Bit of momentum's a wonderful thing in punting, Juppy. So like last week, we had those big meetings at Caulfield and Sandown.
Plenty of runners.
They tend to suit the way I do things because they take a lot of sorting out there. There's risk in them because there's a lot of fringe dwellers in those races, but you can sort of because of the size of the fields, there tends to be enough pressure in the races to draw the cream to the top, which suits me, and also it tends to create volatility in the markets. So, we were able to use those things to our advantage for most of the weekend.
And the bookies have to assign percentage to all the runners, so if there is some there pots that aren't particularly seeded, there's a little bit more percentage in your favour.
Yeah, I just say to people that get my set, I try to get as many races onto the betting plan as I can, but some of those races I leave off. It's just because I'm not comfortable with what direction the market's going to go in, but I seem to find the winner of a lot of those races, and I usually bet on a small. I bet a lot smaller in those races, but I still usually bet in them to some degree, and there was a couple of good winners there on Monday. They plead guilty, and boom time on Saturday, which I to be honest I did end up backing. I'm a bit annoyed at myself for not backing boom time because I just had a feeling Hans Holbein he wasn't as well suited as he would have been in the race that was lost the week before when he would have been on the backup in what was a higher pressure race. And the big difference with the race the week after was there was no other leader. And Bo Mertens was going to get control on boom time. Now, I just want to talk a bit about Bo, because I've been saying this for a while privately to a few of our mates and things. I
know we've had a discussion about it.
I've just forgotten to mention it on the show. But, when I watch Bo ride, I'm not talking about style or action in particular, but I'm talking about the way he positions horses and the way other jockeys react to him a little bit. Bo positions horses like Nash. So I've got in the habit of just calling him Nash. He's Nash to me. And he rode boom time like he was Nash, and he never gave any other horse in the race a chance. And he regularly does that, particularly at Sandown. He just knows how to dominate races and when to push the button to get the other runners to do what he wants them to do. Now, it doesn't always work because they're horses, but he gives so many horses an opportunity to win. So,
from what I've noticed, Potts, he's clearly going out there with a plan, and he's thinking on the go as he goes through. Like, he's not just going out there to punch him around. Like, he's got a plan A and a plan B, and tries to execute it as best he can.
He's very assertive. Which I think
and that's the other thing.
You know, it's a terrific trait for a jockey, and he seems very comfortable from wide draws, and he doesn't get pushed around very often. Now, you know, they all have their ups and downs, but I think he's, to my eye, the most dominant young jockey I've seen in quite a while.
Yeah.
And I think he's on that path to be someone like Nash, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the bigger stables around the country are looking at him to try and use his services. But anyway, I think he's got a great future.
Well, we've been saying probably that over the last 12 or 18 months, nearly for how long we've been doing the show, and we've got the group coming through at the minute with Reggie Bayliss, Bo, Benny Allen. Like, there's a real good group of young guys coming through right now, and they could be the dominant jockeys for the next 20 years here in Melbourne.
Yeah, there's always, you never know what's coming around the next corner, but they've got a great opportunity, these guys. Like, there's we've had Craig, Dwayne and Ollie dominating the premiership for a long time now.
And they're all getting older.
These guys have got a real opportunity to take over that mantle.
Yeah.
It's ripe for them, so, you know, it's up to them, really. So, there we go.
And just on the side note, there you mentioned Nash, he had a nasty fall in Hong Kong over the weekend, dislocated his shoulder and got a fracture in his ankle. So
I did hear that. I mean, I don't watch very many Hong Kong races, but when I say Bo reminds me of Nash, I'm talking about Sydney Nash.
Yeah, where he used to he'd get them there, hold them in the right spot, and just own races. He'd
lead a lot.
Yeah.
And he'd sit 1.5 horses off the fence, which just made it so hard for the other jockeys. And if he didn't do that, he would allow one to go round him, but he'd ease off the fence before they come round him, and he'd sit that 1.5 horses off the fence, which meant he just owned a lot of the room.
Yeah.
If a horse wanted to go up and try and go around him, they were going to be 3 wide almost.
Yeah.
It's hard to, you just can see it when you see the replays. When you watch a lot of them, you can see that they're able to occupy more space in that on pace and handy group. So it's just ownership of it, and Nash owned that position for 5 years in Sydney and just, you know, dominated things up there for quite a few years, even though he couldn't ride light.
No, but it's just the extra work that those horses were having doing to try and eyeball him, because they were, instead of being 1 off the fence, they were nearly 2, 3 off the fence. It's a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
So he's been riding really well, but the only thing he's got to do is just, I see he copped a little suspension then on the weekend. He's just got to stay out of the stewards room, doesn't he, Potts?
Oh, that's a... Yeah.
Well, you did the form for the couple. There were big fields there at the 2 Sydney meetings. I went to the country for the weekend, Potts. I went to a cracking meeting at Warrington for Warrington Cup Day. That's a great move by Wimber Racing or Racing Victoria or the Warrington Club. I don't know whose idea it was to move their cup from... It was on a Sunday, they moved it to Easter Saturday. Huge crowd there, like really solid crowd. The weather was perfect in Chop. It's just worked. Like, the locals seem to be gravitating, especially when I mean locals, not just Warrington, but sort of Horsham and that. They seem to be gravitating more to that than going to this. I also went to Stall the day after, and it was... Everyone said that was going to be a busier meeting. Well, the Warrington meeting turned out to be...
So Stall was on...
Stall was on Sunday, because it's...
Is that running in conjunction with the...
Yeah, they moved the Stall Cup there, it must be nearly 10 years ago now, to that Sunday to coincide with the Athletics Carnival at Central Park. So they there were some of the lesser races that were run, like the Backmarkers Handicap and the 2s and the 400s and that, were run on the Sunday at Central Park, but the main event's the Monday, and they run the heats before that. Now, there's one other point that I want to make about... This is off the racing, but it's still betting related. Now, the young lass that won the ladies' gift, everyone's jumping up and down that she was 30s in the evens. Now, if there was more than one bookie at the Athletics, I'm surprised, because I know one bookie didn't turn up because he normally works the Stall Cup meeting as well. I reckon it would have taken about $40 to get it from 30s in the evens.
So did any of the corporates bet on that stuff?
They would have bet on the final of the men's,
but
they wouldn't bet on all the other stuff too. Just it's a bit hard to get a line on. But another successful athletics channel. The prize money's strong there, and there were plenty of people in the town for Stall, so it was a great weekend to get away. And I'm just surprised how good. Because I remember going to that Warrington meeting. It must have been 8 or 10 years ago now, and it was just a meeting. But since they moved the cup there, everyone got behind it. The weather was good. The racing was really competitive. They got good fields. The field sort of. This is another thing, Potts, and it obviously augurs well for. We're sort of 2 weeks away from Warrnambool now. It sort of augurs well for Warrnambool. There's always big fields down there, but the fields held up at both Warrington, Kerrang and Stawell, which are all sort of in that northwestern region, and there were big fields down here for the two city meetings. So
there were a lot of horses getting doing their best, but getting fit for.
Yeah, there was.
I don't even know if this horse is going to Warrnambool, but if he's a ripper, turns up in Warrnambool, just back that. He's a wet tracker. He's run 2 terrific races on fast tracks at Mornington and Caulfield. If he gets a wet track at Warrnambool, I'd imagine the only race there might be a lesser grade race for him, but maybe the Wongoom. I don't know, but it'd be hard to beat anything he runs in that horse. He's flying.
Can you not even mention that, Potts? I don't want wet tracks at Warrnambool. I want to be at least be mildly be able to feel my fingers, if possible, rather than just freezing.
It's not possible for it not to be a wet track, is it? Isn't it like?
Well, I don't know. Then we know the global warming system starts warming up during Warrnambool week. Speaking of Warrnambool, Potts, that gives us another lead in there. We had the Oakbank Carnival on the weekend, but I think the performance. It was I watched the Great Eastern on Monday. It was an interesting ride by Peyton. He thought he had more horse than he did, but there was won by a couple of sort of middle pinners there. But then we had the comments of the South Australian Racing Minister, Laurie Bignell, who, in my opinion, like everyone knows, I'm a huge fan of jumps racing. I love it. But he obviously didn't cop the tip from Rob Holes. Rob Holes was the minister for here in Victoria, who shut down jumps racing. It was political suicide for him, and it appears that Mr. Bignell's heading down the same path to pander for some animal liberationists and whatnot, and he just said that jumps racing is barbaric and should be stopped as soon as possible. But I mean, I think that Oakbank meeting, I think is the second biggest meeting they have in South Australia, if I remember correctly. I know it's in the top 3. Yeah,
it seems to have dwindled a bit on the Monday. They still get the good crowd on the Saturday, but that's up to whoever is running the show there to make sure they keep the promotion up and try and attract the same crowds they used to by whatever means possible. But to that racing minister, I mean, honestly, mate, and to the animal liberationists, surely there are other things for you to occupy your time with before you get anywhere near what is a segment of the racing industry that provides an avenue for older horses. Would you rather more situations where horses are left not fed properly and not cared for? That there are situations of horses being injured and dying. That is a factor of it, but that's better. But people die on the road. People die in all sorts of ways. You know what I mean? Like it's not as great a crime as seeing these horses not cared for and not treated well. So there's the avenue of jumps racing, of eventing, show jumping, dressage, all that stuff. If a horse has an injury in a 3-day event or some sort of eventing thing, it's not all over the papers. So I'd love someone with the time to do some actual stats on it and see where is it any more prevalent in jumps racing than it is in eventing, because they certainly put them over some pretty stiff tests in those
or cross country
in those events. But I mean, the beauty of those avenues, it's a place for retired racehorses to go and to continue to have a good life, and they're well looked after and well cared for. And I just wish people have a bit of balance about this. You know what I mean? Like there's however many horses there'll be at the Warrnambool Carnival and over this coming jumps racing season. There's a whole bunch of primarily sort of 6 to 11-year-olds that are really well cared for because jumps racing exists.
Well, I can speak first-hand, you Potts. I own a share in a horse by the name of Duke Staggers. He ran 3rd in a high weight maiden at Werribee on Saturday week ago. He was cheap. I can't remember whether I bought 10 or 20%, but it only cost me $800. We bought him for not very much. He was just plodding around in New South Wales. He'd run a couple of races down here. The synthetic didn't suit him, but he can sort of stay a bit. He's got no turn of foot, but once he gets rolling, he can keep rolling at that same tempo for a while. And but he would have been, as they like to call it, wastage or whatever term they like to use for it. But he's still in work. There's a young trainer that's getting a real chance in Alex Ray. He's a real nice young bloke doing his best, which is what the industry needs. Like the rest of the industry needs that. But also, as you know, Potts, and as most of the people who watch this show know, look, I spend a hell of a lot of time in the country, and I think there's the disconnect between that sort of country life and the city life now. Like whenever you've got livestock, and I've got a background in that, whenever you're going to have livestock, you're going to have deaths. It just happens. It's little things. It doesn't matter whether you've got chickens or pigs or sheep or cows or horses. It doesn't make a difference. If you're going to have things that go wrong from time to time, and it's the same with humans. Look, I could get hit by a bus tomorrow, Potts. Like it's just part of it. But the leaps that the jumps industry's made in the last 2 or 3 years to minimise the risk. Like there's still risk involved. It's a dangerous sport. There's no getting it.
I think they've tried really hard to explain and maybe they need to do more, but to promote how well cared for these horses are. And the people that are trying to stop jumps racing and God knows what else, just think for a minute what would happen to all these animals that are currently being cared for, extremely well.
Yeah.
If they weren't the case, and there are things like puppy farms. They're a disgrace to society that they're happening, and we don't stop them.
Yeah.
So here's an industry that is looking after animals really well, and the price is marginal. You know what I mean? It's like there's not been many horses go have accidents in the recent past because they've worked so hard at making sure that they're minimised. So,
and we're not going to stop racing. Like if they want to use that example, well, we had the Sydney Cup the other week, and if you were basing it on that, we shut the whole industry down. Well, they're not going to do that. So it's just a little bit bizarre. But there's one thing you mentioned there with Oakbank Potts, and it sort of rolls into another thing, doesn't it? We had Good Friday racing for the first time out at Ascot. I know I had one bet there. And the footy was on.
You didn't get like struck down by any sort of religious figure in the sky or anything? Like
Not yet.
No?
He's got me in the side, so I try my best to stay on side with him, but every now and then he got me later in the day because they had far too much gin on Good Friday and was in a bit of a state. I think that's something that Oakbank could look at, maybe if they ran Friday, Saturday, because it's not just Oakbank. I've been to a lot of these public holiday meetings down here. Apart from Melbourne Cup Day, public holiday racing here in Victoria is dead.
Oh, it's gone. Look at the saturation of across the board racing. All part 2 days of the year has decimated public holiday racing. Well, maybe I'm just guessing at that, but for whatever reason, public holiday racing used to be significant. And now it's just become just another race meeting. There's
nothing special about them at all.
Nothing.
Well, you'll remember, Potts, I reckon you came out, not the Labor Day just gone, the one before, and we sat up we went at a beer at the Tabaret afterwards. You could have fired a gun for it. Like, that was a nice autumn day at Moonee Valley that day, and if there was more than 600 or 700 people there, I'd be surprised. And it's nothing to do with it. It's just people have been drawn away from these public holiday meetings. The better races aren't on the public holidays anymore. Even Melbourne Cup Day, apart from the Cup, the rest of that card is pretty much junk.
Yeah. No, I mean, the Melbourne Cup Carnival is still the one special time of the year, or the Spring Carnival, I should say, where racing gets a lot of the attention, the mainstream media, the front pages. But apart from that, racing is just so far behind the other mainstream sports in Australia. It's not even funny.
But I think that's something that they could try over there. And one thing's for certain, I reckon that carnival would... Well, would there be any point in running that Easter meeting at Oakbank if it was flat only on that tight, undulating track, or would they just be better off having another meeting at Morphettville?
Yeah, I don't know, JP. I mean, you'd have to ask the people that go. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
And same with the conversation about whether there should be racing on Good Friday. You'd have to ask the people that recreational punters that may or may not bet on it. Are they more likely to bet on Good Friday than they would be on, you know, some other random day? Me personally, I really enjoyed having it. I worked all day Friday, but I was caught up on everything. Got all the form for Caulfield done and everything else. I mean, but if there had been the reality is for me, with all the racing there is in Victoria, I pick and choose which meetings I bet at. I probably bet at something like 30% of the meetings in Victoria. And a lot of them I'll only bet in one or two races. Right? So the only races I get completely involved into the metro ones, meetings I get involved in pretty much every race. But,
then two of them, though, aren't they? Because you don't do the Friday night. So you do the Wednesdays and the Saturdays, because if you're going to do it properly, you need to devote the time to it.
Yeah, so I'm already making decisions about which meetings I'm going to target, which ones I'm not. So if they run another meeting on Good Friday, it'll just be another meeting that I'll probably decide not to get involved in, right? But it's really about what their customers want. And unfortunately, the racing administrators, the level of engagement with their customers is so minimal. They've really left it to corporates. So the scheduling's done by the administration. You only really deal with the trainers and the participants, right? They don't have any direct engagement with their actual
customers, and they don't go out of their way to do it all.
So there's this disconnect really between the administrator and the customers and the end user.
And their main wagering partner, who thinks that the more is more strategy is the way forward.
I wonder if they must be starting to wonder about that. I mean, I don't.
Well,
I'm not sure.
Everyone's like, we're saying we're getting these 6 Mondays off, but all they're doing is moving those races to a Wednesday night when they think they're going to get more wagering turnover than what they will on Monday.
But I think that's probably a good move, Jappy. You know what I mean?
But as you say though, Potts, it doesn't really affect you because you're not going to be betting on that secondary Wednesday meeting the same as you'd have minimal interest in the secondary Saturday meeting.
Well, you pick and choose, Jappy. You know what I mean? Like the Monday meetings, I just almost never have a bet on the Monday. No interest. The turnover's low, so it makes sense to me. You know, I'd almost like to see them. Apart from public holidays, I suppose, just completely scrap Monday racing. Give everyone a day off every day of the week.
I'll admit, from my point of view, Bots, I enjoyed having most of Friday off.
Yeah, but I mean, smarter people than us are working on these things, Juppy. But
what do you reckon I did with some of my Friday pots? Sat in traffic. Cheers, Daniel Andrews. Doing a wonderful job.
It's going good, isn't it? Anyway.
All right. Well, that'll probably do us for part 1. We'll come back with part 2 and discuss a few horses that we might have seen over the last little while, Pots.